7-year-old Timothy Chen's voice echoed through the quiet corridors of Los Angeles Children's Hospital, and no one could have predicted that this voice would turn Hollywood upside down just 3 days later. It was a cold November evening in 1994, and little Timothy was laughing for the first time since being diagnosed with terminal leukemia. Why was he laughing? Because despite the devastating news Dr. Morrison had given his mother, he still hadn't lost hope. "Mama," Timothy said, squeezing his mother's hand, "I'm not going to die because I haven't danced with Patrick Swayze yet." These words, these innocent, unbroken words, first made Timothy's mother cry, then motivated a nurse to action, then moved a journalist, and finally drove one of Hollywood's most powerful studio executives to fury. Because Timothy Chen wasn't just a child with a terminal illness. He also possessed an incredible talent that no one in this world had heard, discovered, or believed in. Timothy Chen's story actually began 2 years earlier in 1992. His father, William Chen, was a Chinese immigrant who ran a small restaurant in San Francisco. His mother, Linda, was an American nurse. Timothy had grown up in the small apartment buildings of Chinatown, between two cultures, between two languages. But music was always the universal language. The first sign appeared when Timothy was 3 years old. Linda was preparing food in the kitchen while Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You" played on the radio. Suddenly she heard Timothy perfectly accompanying the song. He wasn't just following the melody. He knew the words, too. The intonation, the emotional emphasis was all there. Linda froze. The child had never learned this song. "William," she called to her husband, "come here, you need to hear this." William came running, and when he heard Timothy, he couldn't believe his eyes. His son was singing like a professional singer. "How is this possible?" William murmured. The next year, when Timothy turned 4, his talents developed even further. He could sing not only English songs perfectly, but Chinese songs as well. His father began teaching him traditional Chinese folk songs. His mother taught him American pop songs. Timothy absorbed everything like a sponge. No, at 5 years old, Timothy performed at a small neighborhood show. When he sang Amazing Grace, many in the audience wept. "This child is special," said the organizer. "More people need to hear this voice." But then in the summer of 1994, Timothy's energy levels began to drop. Fatigue, weakness, sometimes difficulty breathing. Linda, being a nurse, noticed the symptoms. Blood tests were done. The result turned the family's life upside down. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Advanced stage. "How much time does he have?" Linda asked Dr. Morrison, her voice trembling. "With chemotherapy, maybe a year, but..." The doctor paused. "If he doesn't respond to chemotherapy, a few months." That evening, Linda and William discussed how to inform Timothy, but Timothy had already understood. "Am I sick, Mama?" he asked. "Very sick?" Linda took him in her arms. "Yes, baby. Very sick. But we'll fight with you." "How much time do I have?" Timothy's question wasn't one that should come from a 7-year-old. Linda's heart broke. "We don't know, sweetheart, but we'll make every day special." Chemotherapy lasted 6 months. Timothy's magnificent hair fell out. His vibrant skin paled, but his voice never changed. In his hospital room, he sang for the nurses. He sang for other child patients. Sometimes in the middle of the night, you could hear Timothy's voice in the corridors. In October 1994, Dr. Morrison delivered the terrible news. Chemotherapy hadn't worked. "Maybe a few weeks," he told Linda while Timothy was sleeping. "Maybe a month. I'm sorry." That night, Linda sat by Timothy's hospital bed and cried. Timothy opened his eyes. "Mama, why are you crying?" Just tired, baby." "I'm tired too," Timothy said, "but I still have dreams." "What dreams do you have?" "I want to dance with Patrick Swayze, like in Dirty Dancing, like you and Papa love." Linda's eyes filled with tears. Patrick Swayze was their favorite actor. Maybe we can call him." The next day, Linda tried desperately to contact Patrick Swayze's management. Phones, assistants, rejections. Mr. Swayze is very busy. Maybe next year. But Timothy didn't have a next year. That's when Jackie Martinez stepped in. Jackie was a retired journalist who volunteered at the hospital. When she heard Timothy's story, she called her old work colleagues. "We need to write about this child's story." A week later, a small news story appeared in the Los Angeles Times. Terminal 7-year-old's last wish: to dance with Patrick Swayze. The story was small, but one of the people who read it was a very important figure. Robert Sterling was executive vice president at Paramount Pictures, powerful, wealthy, and influential in Hollywood. But he was also someone who had no tolerance for sentimentality, with a business-first mentality. When Sterling read this story, he became angry. "What is this nonsense?" he said to his assistant Karen. "Calling Patrick Swayze for sick children? Patrick has more important things to do. There's casting for his new film, production meetings. He can't waste time on a child's fantasy." Karen listened quietly. Sterling continued. "Besides, these kinds of stories create a dangerous precedent. Tomorrow every sick child will want to see a celebrity. This isn't business. It's not charity." But the story's spread couldn't be stopped. As more people heard Timothy's story, Patrick Swayze's office began receiving a flood of calls. Fans, families of sick children. "Please see Timothy," Sterling intervened. He spoke with Patrick's manager, Sam Goldman. "Sam, this child situation is getting out of hand. Patrick needs to concentrate. These distractions are unacceptable." Sam hesitated. "But Bob, it's just one child and—" "It's not just one child," Sterling said harshly. "This is the beginning of an endless spiral. Tell Patrick he needs to learn to say no." Patrick Swayze was 42 years old then and at the peak of his career, but he had also become somewhat more thoughtful and sensitive after his mother's death. When he heard about Timothy, it touched him. "Sam," Patrick said to his manager, "what do you think about this child?" "I don't know, Patrick. I spoke with Sterling and he doesn't want this matter to disturb you." "Does Sterling decide who I see?" Patrick's voice hardened. "Patrick, just... Sam, get me that child's family's phone number." When Sterling learned this, he was furious. He called Patrick. "Patrick, this is a very bad decision. It creates precedent. It's against professionalism, and frankly, it's sentimental bullshit." "Bob," Patrick said calmly but firmly, "I'm going to meet with that child." "Patrick, if you meet with this child, hundreds of other sick child families will want the same thing from you. You don't have time." "I'll make time." Sterling hung up angrily. The next day, Patrick called Linda Chen. When the phone rang, Linda was washing dishes in the kitchen while Timothy was staying at the hospital. "Mrs. Chen, this is Patrick Swayze." Linda almost dropped the phone. "Mr. Swayze, is it really you?" "Yes, ma'am. I heard about Timothy. I'd like to meet him if that's okay." Linda began to cry. "Mr. Swayze, this means everything to Timothy. He loves you so much. When can I see him?" "Whenever you want. He's in the hospital and we don't have much time." Patrick came to the hospital the next day. Simple clothes, a bouquet of flowers, and a special gift for Timothy. As he walked through the hospital corridors, nurses recognized him, but no one bothered him. Timothy's room was 314. Patrick knocked on the door. "Come in," said a small voice. When Patrick entered, Timothy was sitting in bed with his mother beside him. The child had become very thin, but his eyes were shining. "Are you really Patrick Swayze?" Timothy asked breathlessly. "Yes, I am. And you must be Timothy." Patrick sat by the bed. "I brought you something." When the gift package was opened, The original Dirty Dancing soundtrack came out, with Patrick's signature. "Wow," Timothy said. "This is the best day of my life." But then Patrick noticed something. There was a guitar by Timothy's bedside. "Do you play?" "Yes," Timothy said shyly. "My mama taught me, and I sing, too." "Would you sing something for me?" Patrick's request surprised Timothy. "Really? You want me to sing?" "Very much." Timothy took the guitar, adjusted the strings with his small hands, and began singing "Time of My Life." But what Patrick heard wasn't just a child singing. This was a professional quality, soulful, perfect performance. Patrick froze. Linda smiled. "He's been singing like this since he was 3, she said proudly. "Nobody knows. Only us." Patrick was in shock. "Timothy, that was incredible. You have a gift." "Really?" Timothy's face lit up. "Do you think I could be a singer if I wasn't sick?" Patrick's heart was heavy. "Timothy, you are a singer. Being sick doesn't change that." That conversation lasted an hour. Patrick taught Timothy dance moves, as much as they could do from the bed. Timothy sang more songs for Patrick. Each song amazed Patrick more. Before leaving, Patrick gave Timothy a surprise. "Timothy, I'm going to be at a charity event next week. It's for sick children. Would you like to come and sing?" Linda was surprised. "Mr. Swayze, Timothy is very weak. I'm not sure if he can go on stage. We'll make sure he's comfortable. I think the world needs to hear Timothy's voice." That evening, Patrick called Sam. "Sam, the child is incredibly talented. I'm going to have him perform at the charity event." Sam hesitated. "Patrick, Sterling won't be happy about this." "Sterling's happiness doesn't concern me." When Sterling learned this, he went crazy. He called Patrick. "Patrick, this is a very bad idea. Putting a sick child on stage if something happens to him during the event, lawsuit, bad publicity, everything. Bob, that child is dying. I'm giving him his last chance." "Patrick, this is sentimental garbage. There's no business sense here." "Then maybe I need less business sense and more human sense." The charity event was to be held at a prestigious hotel in Beverly Hills. 500-person audience. Hollywood celebrities, millionaires, influencers. A special ambulance was prepared for Timothy. Oxygen equipment was placed among the audience. On the night of the event, Timothy was very weak but determined. "Oh, Mama, I can do this," he told Linda. Linda nodded, trying to hold back her tears. When Patrick took the stage, the audience welcomed him enthusiastically. "Ladies and gentlemen," Patrick said, "tonight I want you to meet someone very special. His name is Timothy Chen. He's 7 years old, and he's fighting the fight of his life." The audience fell silent. Patrick continued, "Timothy has a gift, a voice that could move mountains, and tonight he's going to share that gift with us." When Timothy came on stage, he looked so small and fragile that some people worried. But when he stood at the microphone, a transformation occurred. "This song is for my mama and papa," Timothy said in his small voice, "and for Mr. Patrick, who believed in me." When he began singing "Time of My Life," there was pin-drop silence in the audience. Then Timothy's voice began to rise, strong, clear, emotional. The voice coming from a 7-year-old child was no different from a professional singer's. When the first verse ended, a few people in the audience began applauding. But Timothy continued, making his voice even stronger. Patrick stood by the stage, watching with tears in his eyes. When the song reached its climax, Timothy's voice was so powerful, so moving, that the 500-person hall stood up. The song was still continuing, but everyone was crying and applauding. When the song ended, the hall exploded. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Timothy stood in the center of the stage trying to understand what was happening, but a voice from the audience surprised everyone. "This is ridiculous." Robert Sterling had stood up, taken the microphone, and was walking toward the stage. "This is not entertainment. This is exploitation of a sick child." The hall fell silent in shock. Sterling took the stage. "Patrick, this has gone too far. Using this child this way, exploiting his condition. It's unprofessional and frankly disgusting." Patrick became angry. "Bob, what are you doing?" "I'm stopping this circus before it gets worse." Sterling turned to Timothy. "Son, you're very sick. You should be in hospital, not on stage performing for adults' entertainment." Timothy's face fell. Linda stood up from the audience. "Excuse me, sir. Who are you to decide what my son should do? I'm Robert Sterling, Paramount Pictures, and I know what's best for this industry." At that moment, Patrick exploded. "Bob, enough. This child just gave the performance of a lifetime, and you're worried about industry image? Patrick, this sets a dangerous precedent. Every sick child will want celebrity attention. Where does it end?" Patrick looked at Timothy. The child looked scared, sad. Then Patrick made a decision. "You want to know where it ends, Bob?" Patrick took the microphone, turned to the audience. "It ends with us remembering we're human beings first, industry professionals second." Patrick went to Timothy's side, put his hand on his shoulder. "Timothy, sing one more song, for all of us who forgot what really matters." Sterling angrily objected. "Patrick, I forbid this." "You forbid?" Patrick's voice rose. "Bob, you don't own my soul." Timothy, gaining courage from Patrick's bravery, turned back to the microphone. This time he sang "Amazing Grace." His voice was even stronger, more emotional. And as the song progressed, people in the audience began standing up one by one. Sterling left the stage while Timothy's song continued. As he left, he shouted, "This will ruin your career, Patrick." Patrick didn't care. He stood next to Timothy, proud of that little child's courage. When the song ended, the audience went wild. But Patrick wasn't finished yet. "Ladies and gentlemen," Patrick said to the audience, "tonight Timothy showed us what real courage looks like. Tomorrow, I'm establishing the Timothy Chen Foundation for Children's Arts Education." Timothy looked at Patrick in shock. "Really? A foundation for me? For you and kids like you, kids with extraordinary gifts who need someone to believe in them." The next morning, the news exploded. Robert Sterling's scandal, Timothy's incredible performance, Patrick's foundation announcement. Every major network picked up the story. Great pressure was put on Sterling. He was forced to resign from Paramount. His career was over, but the most incredible part happened. After Timothy's performance that night, there was improvement in his health. Doctors couldn't explain it, but Timothy became stronger, more energetic, more hopeful. "Sometimes," said Dr. Morrison, "the will to live gets stronger when people find their purpose." Timothy lived for 6 more months. 6 months that doctors said were medically impossible. 6 months filled with quality time with his family, more Michael Jackson concerts. Michael made sure Emma had front row seats whenever he performed in Europe, and most importantly, 6 months without fear. After that night, Maria Rodriguez said years later, Emma wasn't afraid of dying anymore. She knew she was loved, not just by us, but by Michael, and by all those people who sang with her that night. It gave her such peace. Patrick went to Timothy's side, put his hand on his shoulder. "Timothy, sing one more song, for all of us who forgot what really matters." Sterling angrily objected. "Patrick, I forbid this." "You forbid?" Patrick's voice rose. "Bob, you don't own my soul." Timothy, gaining courage from Patrick's bravery, turned back to the microphone. This time he sang "Amazing Grace." His voice was even stronger, more emotional. And as the song progressed, people in the audience began standing up one by one. Sterling left the stage while Timothy's song continued. As he left, he shouted, "This will ruin your career, Patrick." Patrick didn't care. He stood next to Timothy, proud of that little child's courage. When the song ended, the audience went wild. But Patrick wasn't finished yet. "Ladies and gentlemen," Patrick said to the audience, "tonight Timothy showed us what real courage looks like. Tomorrow, I'm establishing the Timothy Chen Foundation for Children's Arts Education." Timothy looked at Patrick in shock. "Really? A foundation for me? For you and kids like you. Kids with extraordinary gifts who need someone to believe in them." The next morning, the news exploded. Robert Sterling's scandal, Timothy's incredible performance, Patrick's foundation announcement. Every major network picked up the story. Great pressure was put on Sterling. He was forced to resign from Paramount. His career was over. But the most incredible part happened. After Timothy's performance that night, there was improvement in his health. Doctors couldn't explain it, but Timothy became stronger, more energetic, more hopeful. "Sometimes," said Dr. Morrison, "the will to live gets stronger when people find their purpose." Timothy lived for 6 more months. 6 months that doctors said were medically impossible. 6 months filled with quality time with his family. More Michael Jackson concerts. Michael made sure Emma had front row seats whenever he performed in Europe, and most importantly, 6 months without fear. After that night, Maria Rodriguez said years later, Emma wasn't afraid of dying anymore. She knew she was loved, not just by us, but by Michael, and by all those people who sang with her that night. It gave her such peace. Chunk 8, final 3,500 characters. During those 6 months, the Timothy Chen Foundation was established. 500 sick children received music education, and Timothy's voice was introduced to the world. When Timothy passed away in the summer of 1995, 2,000 people attended his funeral. Patrick supported Linda and William, and Timothy's voice continued to live forever through the foundation that was established. Today, there's a Timothy Chen Music Therapy Wing at UCLA Medical Center. There's a Timothy Chen Concert Hall at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. And every year, hundreds of sick children are introduced to music inspired by Timothy's story. When Patrick Swayze died in 2009, he left $2 million to the Timothy Chen Foundation in his will. "Timothy taught me that some things are more important than business," he wrote in his note. His voice still echoes in my heart. Timothy's story teaches us that sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest messages. And sometimes a child's last wish can change an entire industry, establish a foundation, and touch thousands of lives. Because Timothy Chen didn't just sing that night. He gave Hollywood a humanity lesson. And Patrick Swayze was big enough of a person to listen to that lesson. The story of that night reminds us that true heroism isn't always about the roles we play on screen. Sometimes it's about the moment we stop performing and start seeing the people who need someone to believe in them. Patrick Swayze could have ignored the pressure, could have finished the event quietly, could have avoided the confrontation. Instead, he chose to stand up for a dying child's right to be heard. He chose humanity over industry politics. He chose to be Patrick the man instead of Patrick the movie star. And in doing so, he gave a dying little boy 6 more months of life. 500 people a memory they'd carry forever, and all of us a reminder that fame and success mean nothing if we don't use them to help others. Timothy Chen's voice was silenced by death, but his story continues to inspire, his foundation continues to help, and his message continues to echo. That every child deserves to be heard, believed in, and given the chance to share their gifts with the world. If this incredible story of courage and compassion moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember that standing up for others is always worth it. What would you have done in Patrick's position? Let us know in the comments below.